I'll load up those couple of comments from Discord to slide into the show during the topic.
Cool.
I see we have our token Canadian in the room.
Yeah.
Yes, and our permanently on probation AJ is here.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Who successfully piloted his plane back from Greenville to McCollum. And he didn't hit any birds, and he didn't lose any cylinders. It was a miracle.
Yeah.
Oh, that actually reminds me. I'll tell a little tale.
Right.
Anyway. Well, actually, it's already 7. We can just crank it up, man.
Yeah.
It is.
You can say that, but that means I have to be ready to
you got to press buttons.
So, yes. All right, here we go.
Things.
Welcome to the Midlife Pilot Podcast. We are glad you're with us. What is it like to become a pilot in your 40s and 50s? The challenges are unique for those of us in midlife, but so are the rewards. Hosts Ben, Brian, and Ted talk learning to fly, growing as pilots, and the joy of flying to destinations. The purpose of the podcast is not to teach, but to share knowledge and experiences of being a midlife pilot. Join the Midlife Pilot community and listen in every week. We are not CFIs or particularly intelligent, so if you want to learn how to fly, talk to anyone else other than the hosts of a podcast. Even this intro was too challenging for us, and we used a robot to do it. Okay, checklists are complete. Let's get the show started.
Hey there. Welcome to the Midlife Pilot Podcast, where we share the experiences and the challenges of flying in midlife. Whether you're a seasoned pilot, training for your private or instrument ratings, or you're just thinking about getting started in aviation, we like to think of this podcast as your aviation companion and your weekly dose of aviation inspiration. My name is Ben. I am a commercial pilot that has an IFR rating. I fly an airplane, a Cessna 182, we like to call the Beast. Joining me tonight, as always, we have our friends, a private pilot living in Nashville, home of the Bachelorette Super Charlie. He flies a Cherokee 180. He likes to call her Lucy. His name is Brian Siskind. Good evening, sir.
Very thorough. I feel like you're my agent setting me up for a job interview before you walk away and hope for the best. But yeah, how's it going, man? How's it going, everybody?
It's going very well, and yeah, I'll be your agent. I don't think it'll do very much for your career, but listen, you need somebody to fill that role. I can do it. Also joining us tonight, out on the left coast, our friend, the sport pilot living in Portlandia, which, by the way, I just started watching that series all over again, and I'm really glad that I did. He flies a Flight Design CTLS, we like to call the Egg, and his name is Ted. Good evening, Ted.
Hey there. We are definitely into fall here. I'm watching out my window as the leaves fall and sitting there thinking about all the work that means for me. So very midlife.
We have a really good fix for that in Georgia. What we do is we take out all the trees in our yard. And it doesn't completely eliminate it because you have neighbors with trees, but
Yeah.
it's a lot easier to take care of.
Hey,
Yeah.
Ted, I got to ask you a question real quick. This CTLS, does your brain look at that and think Control S as in save?
The problem is that it's CTLS. It's a flight design. The ICAO code or type is FDCT, and so I'm always sitting there like twisted on trying to remember what to call it in the different contexts. So I'm just always tongue tied for it anyway.
I think it's Control S. It's like
do you think that's premeditated, that they wanted to be Control S to save save you in your flying?
Exactly. Yeah.
Parachute. I mean, you got a parachute.
I wasn't going to say it. I was saying the same thing. Yeah.
Very good. Yeah. Tonight, what have y'all been up to? I'll go ahead and start because I got some good news today. We thought we were going to have to do a prop overhaul, and turns out it was just some seals that were at the crankshaft that needed to be replaced. So it's good news for two reasons. I will have the Beast back before the 100th fly meetup, the 100th episode meetup, should I say. And it's going to be a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
That's a big part of it too. So haven't been doing any flying since our last episode, but now the wait will be short. What about you guys, Brian? Have you been able to get up at all?
So what you have is you're having an underhaul.
I am having a less haul.
Yeah. That's great news.
Yeah.
I know that was probably a little stressful. But yeah, so I did some flying this weekend. Nothing crazy. Didn't go any, far away places, but it was a great weekend. The weather was really nice. Sorry, Ben. And let's see, highlights. Took up a buddy of mine and his I think his son is 6 years old.
Oh.
And his son, got to go up for the first time, and that's always just an immense thrill. It was pretty funny because I was really concerned about his son, getting in the plane properly and, just all that. And the first thing he noticed was that there were some pennies on the floor, and he was trying to, get out of the seat that we kind of just got him settled into to try to get some of these pennies. We told him he could we'll get them later, So of course we take this small human on a magnificent flight over downtown, at sunset, into night. It was just a beautiful view and everything was just really great. He didn't have any nerves really or anything. Side note, correction. The only time he got nervous and spoke up at any time was when I was letting his dad in the right seat fly a little bit. Yeah, not let dad fly anymore. I'll be fine.
I guess he knows his dad better than you do.
It makes total sense. But then we went through this whole flight. Everything was great. And then we got back. We're getting out of the plane. He's like, no, wait. We got flashlights at this point. He's digging around in the floorboard for the pennies. Like, he did not forget.
No.
So very positive experience for the young one. So that was really
been
good.
Your youngest passenger?
Yeah, actually, yeah. I've had some other young ones, but not quite that young.
Okay.
It's a challenge, when it comes to the talking.
Yes, sir, it is.
Because you can only tell them so much. So they're only gonna listen so many times to please stop talking.
Right.
It was great though. It worked out totally fine. And then the next day, so this would be Saturday, we flew over to Gallatin to November X-Ray. Quick little hop, and flew into the Music City Stoll competition and event. And that was outrageously cool. And I wish you guys could have been there. Ben, I learned a lot about those competitions. I just didn't understand. You can, for the rookie class or for the backcountry class, you can kind of show up with whatever.
Right.
And, send it and see what happens. But there was a 182, Ben, that was pretty close to what you fly that did really well. I mean, I was just thinking, Ben, you should be doing this, man. But my other friend, Ben, instructor Ben, tailwheel Ben, he was flying the 140 that I did tailwheel with him in. He put some bigger tires on it. It's still only 90 horsepower. But it was just really cool to see him, just getting the most out of an airplane like that you can. And he was definitely having trouble cranking too soon. And so I think in his mind, he was going faster than he was, or I don't know, just maybe the winds weren't hitting just right, but he was doing a lot of putting the tail back down and not going anywhere for a minute. All that to be said, he did great. And it was great to talk to him after the competition and kind of get a sense of what was going through his head and how he scratched a couple times and, all this, but, seeing how he did it for the first time last year. So he just see what kind of changes he was trying to make and all of that. It was just really fascinating. Plus it was a great event. They had amazing food. They had a DC-3 there. They were giving rides. They had I don't know, just a whole bunch of stuff going on. It was just a really I don't know. There's certain aviation events that seem kind of daunting with the size and the commitment to go, and the fact that the main runway was able to still have normal operations, and you just would talk to the air boss when you're coming in,
Yeah.
and it was very manageable. It was just it was just a perfect size event. So big shout out to National Stoll and the Music City Stoll competition people and volunteers and everything. It just went absolutely perfect weather, couldn't have been any better all the way around. Really, really fun event. And it was the first time that I'd ever come in to do a landing. It kind of didn't occur to me until I was on short final. And I look over and just all the crowd is lining the parallel grass runway that is just to the right of the runway that I'm coming in on. And they're all looking, it's just like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people all sitting along the,
Let's judge this guy's landing.
I'm the only guy coming in. Like there wasn't a ton of traffic coming in on the main runway. So
enjoy bouncing that landing.
And I really just wanted to show them the majesty of a go around, and no, just
I'd love to put that on my calendar for next year. And by the way, I have actually been back and forth with CFI Ben. That actually may be happening in the very near future because all other resources that I've found have failed me. So,
well, I really hope so. And he's going to be a double I soon, so he was talking to me about some of those things. So,
okay.
But so it was just, I don't know. We just had the absolute best time. It was just one of those things where just everything couldn't have been any better. And the competition and everything was amazing. You can see it on YouTube. They do an incredible job with the production. They've got the whole live cast on their YouTube channel, and it is supremely well commentated and covered, and live drone footage and all the things. I mean, it's really, really, really well done. So anyway,
I've watched a couple of them. Yeah, I've seen them. Who's the guy? He has a YouTube channel, Super Aero Live. I can't think of his name. He usually does the commentating, and he was probably there for that one.
Is that Dombrowski?
Yes, Ryan Dombrowski. Yep, that's him.
Who Badger Pilot keeps adding a letter to his name, if I remember right, but I don't remember which way it goes. So
but he does a really good job with it. I enjoy. He knows all the pilots really well and knows their aircraft, so he does a really good job with that.
Yeah, I'll put links to it in the show notes. And CFI Brian's 140 is the one that's in our video intro for the podcast. Also, I want to highlight Alyssa has a comment about the finding the pennies. She said, "Note to self: next Young Eagles flight, plant loose change in the back seat."
That's right.
I was just thinking about the kid got those out. Man, my weight and balance is better now.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you.
I'll take that gain.
He wants to take more flights because he can fill up his piggy bank. That's where to go one more flight.
This is the only person making money in aviation. So the event was great. Everything was great. I did get a few words from some people that said, I think you should do this. I think you would really get into this, and I think you would really be good at this. And I just thought that is not what I need or want to hear, because it's probably true. I really actually think I would love it. So Ben, I'm gonna have to get checked out on your plane. It's got to be a plane I don't care about. Somebody else's plane.
And you're gonna scramble for Alyssa's change to be able to afford it.
Yeah. So and then on the way back, we were having to fly fairly low, trying to get on with Nashville, and then right about at the time that I was able to get on with Nashville and start climbing a little bit, giant bird. I mean, something with a 5 or 6 foot wingspan. Didn't tell me its name, but I saw a lot of details about it. It was coming right at us, and probably the closest call I've ever had. And I thought about recent situations with friends of ours that have had some things occur, and I thought about the maneuvering that was done, and I actually in my mind said, I'm going to do a small correction. And I think that if I would have done a 45-degree bank, I probably would have caught it on a wheel pant or something. But I kind of just 15-degreed it and, waited for the thud
Yeah.
right as it went underneath, and it didn't happen. And so it's strange when things like that happen too, because it's over. You see it in an instant, and it's over in an instant, and no harm, no foul, nothing happened. But you still can't stop just sitting there thinking about
Right.
all the ways that could have gone that you really don't have a lot of control over. So
No foul. Was that on purpose?
no foul.
Alyssa's in the comments again. She says, Centerline Siskind doing stall seems so on brand.
On brand, yeah.
Like Centerline Siskind.
Man, I tell you, it's yeah.
I do want to try it.
You should.
I would. I'd throw myself out there and
I think you would be great at it, and I think, my gosh, you have the plane already perfectly set up to do it. I mean, come on.
Yeah. Nathan Ballard, Master CFI, Chief CFI for the Midlife Pilot Podcast. Here are two bird myths for you. 1, birds don't automatically dive to avoid you. 2, birds don't see light like we do. So flashing lights don't help them avoid us.
Yeah. Nathan did a great video about birds and those myths.
Yes.
And we'll make sure to link that in the show notes.
They actually forecast where they're going to, the migration patterns and things like that. So it's pretty cool.
Nathan Mallard.
Wow. I like
New
it.
name.
Coming through.
Yeah. Ted, flying.
Yeah.
Have you been doing much?
I did a little flight. It was just 20 miles each way there and back to go to a wings seminar. But I had a great improvement on this. I was going to Aurora, which is UAO. That's where Van's Aircraft is based, and a bunch of things like Ericsson Air Crane and things like that. But they have a 5,000 foot runway, and next to it is the parallel 5,000 foot taxiway, and that's it. And there are big businesses at both diagonal ends of the taxiway. So the problem is that if you're on the taxiway, traffic needs to go both directions. And I have been, actually, it's in one of my videos, but I've been 10 miles out in the air and had somebody on the ground that had to wait for me until I got past them on the ground on the taxiway before they could move. So it's kind of terrible in that way.
What's what's the alternative? You have to push somebody out to the runway to go around you or something?
Yeah, so you just wait in the non-movement areas until they let you in. They kind of do all the traffic one way and all the other way. So
I see.
But I had it figured out, and I said, because I was going to the far end, and I said, "Hey, can I land long?" The guy's like, "Yep." So landed long, still had one exit left, but I waited and I went all the way down to the end, turned across on that one. Traffic was able to get out, and I was able to go in. I was so proud of myself for doing that. So very little thing, but it's one of those kind of life hacks is ask what you need, and it saves them the effort too. So yeah.
And it's one of those things where when you were just starting out, you wouldn't have maybe even thought,
oh yeah,
I'm just trying to get this thing down.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, just a little one.
So we've got a few events and announcements that we wanted to come out with, or not come out with, but tell you about. We're broadcasting our 100th episode on Monday, October 28th. We will be broadcasting live from 4 Golf 7. That's Fairmont Airport in Fairmont, West Virginia. That's the base camp, for those of you who don't know, for the Midlife Pilot, our OG, Chris Moran. It's a casual event. We're not organizing it like a fly-in. It's not going to be anything like that. We would like to know if you're coming, though. You can RSVP in the Discord chat at 100th episode chat. There's a channel for that. Or you could just drop us an email at midlifepilotpodcast@gmail.com. Events will be communicated through the Discord channel. If you email us and you need to know what the events are, we'll get the stuff over to you. But very excited about it, especially now that I know I'm going to have my airplane.
Yeah.
Should be a really good time.
Yeah.
So we got some feedback from the last episode and in general as well. But one of you guys want to take on the listener feedback?
Yeah, I'll take that first one. So last week we talked about pet peeves, and Chris H wrote in and said, I'll add a pet peeve: the angry captain who launches into a lecture on guard about the guy meowing on guard. Yeah, we get it, stupid and immature, but your rant just ate up more than 15 ate up more time than 15 meows and solved nothing. And it encouraged the people to keep doing it. So
I mean, do you
that's
not
me.
have
Yeah.
the image of the old man screaming at the clouds from The
Oh yeah.
Simpsons when you hear that on the radio? That's exactly what I'm thinking.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah. When there's no accountability,
yeah. Right.
so you don't know. Yeah, it's a useless cause when there's absolutely no structure or means for accountability.
Right.
Yeah.
There's no way to do it. But that's awesome. I mean, and we'll continue to take more pet
Yeah.
peeves from people because I think that people have more. So if you have some, just keep sending them in. Maybe we'll just become the pet peeve podcast.
And they don't have to just be about Ben. They can be
No,
on
they
any
don't.
topic. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Well, I'll grab this this next one if that's cool.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
All right. This feedback is from Patrick K. He says, "Thank you for creating such a great community for what I initially thought would be a small group of folks. I started my aviation journey in midlife, bought a plane, initially a Cardinal for doing my IFR training, and now a T210 for hauling the family around, and have been flying as much as I can in my spare time, so far around 350 hours over 2 years. That's a lot.
Yep.
Yeah.
And those are some great planes. I'm very jealous. Through your podcast, I've heard so many sentiments and circumstances that are familiar to me in my flying progression and ones that are not touched on in other areas of aviation content. If any of you hosts are ever in the Dallas area, let me know. It'd be great to go flying with you." Well, let me tell you right now, the next time I'm coming through Dallas, I'm definitely hitting you up and I'm definitely wanting a ride in whatever you're
210.
flying.
Yeah.
So
You were just in Dallas too.
I was,
Yeah.
I was just outside, over and beside Dallas.
Yeah.
I was in McKinney and I was in Greenville, Texas.
Yeah. It was great hearing
Turbocharged
from-
210. If it's got retractable gear, he could probably come here to Atlanta in one tank very easily and probably very economically.
Yeah.
Those things, and they can carry a lot of weight.
And the Cardinal is the 177, right?
That's
Yeah.
Are
correct.
those retractable?
Some.
You can get
Okay.
them, yeah,
Yeah.
but they don't have. Both of those planes don't have wing struts.
I know. I love my no strut plane. Getting into, the few times that I've flown a 150 and when I get into, your plane, Ben, and it's like I'm always on the wrong side of the strut. It's just it never fails. So it is it's good for those of us that are a little bit on the dumb side. Like we don't go to get in the door and be like, oh no, I have to walk around this thing now.
Well, yeah, but I agree with that. But you also have spar inspections you have to do too, so there's a downside to it. But no, that's very cool, and we appreciate that feedback.
Yeah,
Definitely. And 350 hours in 2 years, that's
legit.
That's
Yeah.
legit. I mean,
Definitely.
honestly, even if you're doing 50 hours in 2 years, don't feel bad. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
That's pretty
Well,
great.
a private and an instrument rating, you're going to be flying a lot. That's
Just to get the rating. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. So I watched mine spiral down after I stopped training. So, Brian, we've got some other things to get to before we get into our subject.
All right, we'll bang through this housekeeping real quick.
Yeah.
And then we'll get to our topic, which do folks know what it is yet?
Our topic tonight is superstitions, our personal, and then anybody in the chat, if you know of any general aviation superstitions, we'd like to hear it.
A little housekeeping first. We would like to thank our listeners for making this the best pilot community that we know of. It's a positive, encouraging, supportive place where we talk about everything from training, bad radio calls, plenty of those, sharing personal minimums to keep each other accountable, the challenges of plane ownership, which are many, offering feedback on flight plans. Even One Dull Geek was in getting feedback on his flight plan.
That's right.
Just today. And I just thought, this is so great. What a great place to be able to just say, hey guys, have a look at this. What do you think?
And got some great feedback from other people. So
yeah, I learned a bunch of things actually that I didn't know. So So yeah, feedback on flight plans, arranging community meetups. Basically, it's a goldmine of experience and camaraderie, not just about flying, but growing as midlife pilots. Ways to engage with the community. You can support the podcast on Patreon for as little as $1 a month. That is 25 cents per episode. You can support the podcast and join the Midlife Pilot Podcast community on Discord. You'll get access to miles of bonus content, including check ride debriefs. We have another one coming, I think, here pretty soon. Those come pretty often.
Yeah.
Really cool. With community members, stories of challenging flight experiences, and much more. 10% of the proceeds of our Patreon are donated to the Freedom Aviation Network, who works with volunteer pilots to provide safe, efficient, and rapid air transportation for survivors of human trafficking and their advocates. Next way to engage, subscribe to this YouTube channel. We're here Mondays, 8 p.m. Eastern, as we record the show live. Be a part of it in the live chat. It's good to see everybody here in the chat tonight. And lastly, send us feedback. We love hearing from the listeners with good insights, stories, or even bad insights and bad stories. Write or send a voice memo or whatever you want to midlifepilotpodcast@gmail.com. We respond to every message eventually, and you might even hear yourself on a future episode. To join the community, give feedback, get merch, and more, visit midlifepilotpodcast.com. And Ted, is there a merch update?
There is a merch update. For those that are on the live stream, Ben's wearing the new midlife hat. We haven't had a hat in our store for a little while, and there's been some requests for it. So they are a comfortable fabric hat called a dad hat, which makes sense. And we've got a couple of colors. I think they're in the store in dark blue, gray, and black. Is that gray or green? The one
Gray.
we've got on.
This one's
Gray.
gray.
Sure to the color palette is sure to keep you invisible and to never stand out in any crowd.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's dad hats. They are built for midlifers. I mean, this just had our name written all over it. Might as well
Yeah.
just call it midlife hats.
Yeah. And we got a couple of different brands to try them and see what we liked and decide on this one. So as of an hour ago, they're on our merch store. So midlifepilotpodcast.com/merch.
Early warning: if you're follically challenged like I am, you might have to do something to the little embroidery on the inside because it can get a little itchy. So buyer beware.
Yeah.
So
A little,
yes, Peter, they are distressed hats, just like our lives are distressed. It just goes hand in hand.
yes.
So yeah, thank you, Brian. We wanted to get in the topic. We've got some people already jumping in.
Well,
But
hang on.
tonight,
Before we do,
Yeah.
let me. We've got some new Patreon supporters. I'd like
sorry,
to thank.
yeah, you're right. Sorry.
So Landomatic level, we've got Bentley C. At the Hershey Bar level, we have Ryan A. and Matt D. And at the Beast Stole level, we have John C., who happens to be based at the same airport as the Beast Stole itself. So that works out well.
Yes, thank you all.
I've started keeping some notes about some of the commentary in Discord, and I miss a lot, but just a sampling what's been going on this week.
And why you need to be a Patreon member so you can get access to this.
Alpha Juliet Foxtrot asked, quote, "Is there a particular wind speed y'all like to tie down instead of just throw the chocks on for a quick lunch stop?" Great question. Reply, "I'm glad you asked this because I've been too afraid to ask what people are using chocks for." That devolved into a conversation about parking brakes and maybe a little bit of heat being thrown about chocks, as might be expected. But other topics, how much you trust a mechanic when they say this isn't a problem. Cheapskate Nathan talked about stalls with the VGs in the Warrior, which has been kind of, we've talked about for the last couple of weeks, is the delight of a Warrior with VGs, so that stalls are super, super soft. There's a book called Cherokee Tribe about all the PA-28 variants, pictures of the Northern Lights. The new Patreon supporter that said they're on the verge of their first solo. There was a debrief of an event related to a car rally with a lot of planes flying overhead it. First time with Foggles on, talking about having a post-it over the attitude indicator. Wendy had her 5.5 hour IFR cross country.
Yeah.
Shared pictures,
That's
including
amazing.
Yep.
Portland CFI Sam was in that picture. And then some talk about your first ASRS. And my theory is that there is an acceptable frequency of ASRSs. So I'd like to hear more about what people think about that conversation too. So yeah.
Excellent.
So a lot to digest.
Yeah.
So for all of you out there listening, it really is the best part of the community is being able to interact with all of us. So
Yeah.
So let's dive into it. We've got some good conversation going on in the chat. I wrote down a few things, and there's kind of a fine line between following a checklist and then being OCD about it or doing it in a very specific way. And I've got a few things that I do. I would say 99.99% of the time, especially if it's a planned flight. I've known about this for a week, but the first thing, the night before, when I get the weather debrief, I built this little Word document that I put runways and frequencies, and if it's an IFR plan, the route. But it kind of helps me get my head into the game of what I'm about to do, runway orientations, look at remarks and stuff. But and then the other thing that I do is I have we all pre-flight. That's not a superstition. That's a safety thing. But like I will take the cover off the airplane in a very specific manner, and I'll do the actual walk around and if somebody exactly the same way each time, and if somebody interrupts me, I start all over.
Wow.
I can't not do it. I fold everything up in the exact order, and I didn't think it was that big of a deal until somebody was flying with me and they just started flinging the cover off and didn't do it my way. I almost just canceled the flight.
Yeah. I said I'm sorry.
So, but yeah, and then I just have like a very detailed pattern of way of doing things that ensures that I don't have any major issues.
I think it is interesting that really what it is, we are walking a fine line between OCD and superstition. Side note, do you know where the tradition of knocking on wood comes from?
No.
I'm anxious to hear this.
So it's an ancient pagan belief that they believed that spirits and gods lived in trees. And so that's why people knocked on wood.
So you knock to the spirit or knock to the gods. Yeah.
And and there's another one here that I thought was good. I was just looking at. It was the Romans that actually came up with the superstition that they believed that mirrors contained part of a person's soul. So breaking a mirror was thought to, elicit a health issue or whatever.
That's right.
Well, Mike Alpha Golf said, my superstition is I don't have a superstition. Superstitions scare me in that I might think my plane will obey something other than hard physics. I like to think of myself as being an iconoclast. I really dislike kind of tradition for tradition's sakes, which includes turkey on Thanksgiving. I really dislike things like that. But I do have my own little superstitions, and it's hard to. I can't say that I avoid them completely. Brian, you've got some that you follow.
Well, one of it's actually come up several times, even in the chat here. But Alyssa had mentioned it, and someone else had mentioned it in Discord when we were talking about this beforehand. And I think this is probably one of the most common ones, but I think it's probably my favorite, which is absolutely call the plane by name and thank the plane for I always just say, good job, Lucy, or thanks, Lucy, or whatever. And it is just sort of taking a moment to just go thank you to this inanimate object for doing what it's supposed to do. So I think that's probably one of the most common ones. Ben, do you do this, or Ted?
I've thanked the beast in the past.
Yeah.
I think Terry probably thanks it more than I do, which is probably more commentary on my piloting skills than anything else, that it
Mhm.
can still get us down safely even after I put it through its paces. So,
Yeah, despite your flying.
right.
Yeah, I don't do that either, but, yeah, both Alyssa and, Jody O said, Jody said, "I do pet my plane on the nose and tell her she's a good girl, even when the nose wheel goes flat before the taxiway." Shannon, these are all agreements with Alyssa, who talks about thanking the plane. Shannon said, "And never talk bad about my plane in flight, no matter how bad the glitch is." You know, yeah, my plane doesn't have a name, or a personal name yet, which is interesting. So, and I think maybe if it did, there'd be a little bit more of that.
Yeah, I think that is the thing.
There was another comment that I liked a lot from Jody O is my superstition, if I don't check the fuel level, it will be empty. If I don't pump the tanks, the level I just checked will return water, turn to water. So I absolutely agree with that. That's, I mean, listen, I've been superstitious about everything in my entire life. I've been in sales for 25 years. I I'm superstitious about everything. So yeah, if you don't check it, then it's going to be bad. That's just the way it works.
Well, and I think the other half of that is you kind of deserve it if you don't check it. That
Right.
one time you didn't check it, you brought it on yourself, right? Is that how you feel inside?
It is my fault. If
Yeah.
something doesn't happen that's completely out of my hands, I did something to affect that, which makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
But
Wendy's got one here. Wendy said, "I always feel like seeing hawks or bald eagles on my way to the airport is a good omen for the flight ahead." Well, I mean, it depends how near they are to the airport, but yeah, it's a way to look at it.
In the vicinity.
Yeah, birds in the vicinity. Yeah, listen to the AWAS. Yeah,
I like
I
I
had
liked.
two.
Go ahead. Sorry, Ted.
Yeah, I had two during training that I was
Okay.
very kind of particular about. One, and it was how I was dressed. I wouldn't wear a t-shirt. I'd always wear a button-up, a polo shirt, something like that. Just something about that kind of respect. And the other thing is I got into this habit of wearing weird socks every time I flew. So they could just be bright stripes. They could be, the ones from Sporties that have a runway on the side of them, whatever. But I got in this habit of always wearing, some sort of fun sock. I quit doing that after I got my ticket, and it just became a lot more typical of a thing. But I still think now when I wear a t-shirt, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm wearing a t-shirt flying. That means something to me that
Yeah.
I've crossed that threshold now. And may
I
not
think
be
it's
a good
funny
thing.
how it's like the more you deprofessionalize, the more encouraged you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
I it's my knee board. It serves. I've got plenty of things that I can write on in the airplane, but if I don't bring my knee board with me, I will turn around and home and go get it.
Mm.
I can't fly without it. And it is old and beat up, but it's my partner. It's my
Yeah.
co-pilot.
You had one
That's
you
the only
wanted to read there?
clothing or wearable that I have that's my superstition side.
Yeah.
I definitely have shoes that I like to fly in, and if I'm not wearing those particular shoes, I feel weird. But the shoes that I like to fly in are complete. There's holes in the in the soles of these shoes, but there's something
Is
about
the right shoe more worn out than the left because
Yeah.
you're putting one more right rudder?
Yeah.
What is right rudder?
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
Well, I can read one here from our friends over at Flying Midwest podcast. It said, "Mine is fuel related too. If I don't top off at any stop, I will for sure run out of fuel. Logical brain knows that this is totally irrational with proper planning." Yeah, you're not flying the egg with 8+ hours of range. I think about it every flight, but definitely don't have to top off every flight. But I think that probably varies with the planes.
I try to, I look.
Yeah.
I check it. I
So
like
do you call for fuel when you're about to take off rather than when you get back to the airport, Brian? Because I mean, you've got a fuel truck there, right? At Bowling Green.
So yeah, but what are you saying?
do you fuel the plane as you're leaving to go home or as you're
Oh,
arriving
I
at the
see.
airport?
I thought the way you said it was
Sorry.
like when you're taking off, do you call
Yeah.
like so that there'll be
Mid-air refueling, call
Yeah.
the KC-135s to come in, drop
Exactly.
in.
Yeah.
so they'll be ready when I land,
Yeah.
tomorrow. But
Yeah.
no, that is the way that it works. It is a little interesting at Bowling Green because we are in the East Hangars. There is no taxiways to the East Hangars, so they have to get on the crossing runway.
Mhm.
Fuel, a giant fuel bomb on wheels to come take care of us all the time. But they're used to it, and it's not busy generally. So yeah, they come. It's great though. They actually, I'm surprised that I was surprised to know that because I don't like doing hot starts. I don't like because we're all the FBO's on the other side of the airport. So we would have to go over there, top off, then start it back up again just to taxi it over and then park it. And I know a lot of people do that and it's not going to be the end of the world, but I don't like the wear and tear on the starter. I don't like hot starts. I don't know. I just don't want to do it.
But my question was if you do it before or after a flight.
After.
Okay.
So that it's always topped off for myself or my partner in the plane.
Yeah.
And
So-
I think that that's probably best. I mean, somebody can tell me otherwise, but it seems like that's the thing to do also, especially when the temperature is starting, I want the tanks to be full so there's not as much condensation and things like that. Even though it's in a hangar, it's not controlled.
We do the same thing. We top off, but I do have a question for the VFR pilots. I know it was this way before I got my instrument rating, but
Sure, just whatever we can help you with our expertise, Ben.
Yeah.
well, how many times when you have a really important flight that you want to take that the weather came in? I always thought the weather would completely improve once I got my IFR rating, and to a certain extent it did.
Meaning that you can control the weather by having an IFR rating?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Wow.
Well,
I mean, have you had a lot of flights canceled because you didn't have your IFR?
Yeah.
Probably not.
I haven't.
I feel like it's just me. It's the rule of bad luck, the Murphy's Law.
Well, I think it's also how I kind of go about flying anyway is in terms of planning is I use something like Windy to have a nice outlook
Right.
that's pretty accurate. And then I start to see where, you get a sense of where, okay, this is going to be low pressure for a minute and this is going to be high pressure for a minute. And it's just those fronts coming and going. And you start to get a real sense of where the opportunities are going to be to try to get somewhere to do something. And I generally just plan when I start to plan a week or two out to maybe go somewhere. I start just looking for that. Where's that window going to be of the best odds?
Yeah.
And then I start there. So
you
that
actually
usually
plan ahead, though. That's probably what I wasn't doing. Is
yeah. Well, I mean, if I do it on the spot, it's because things are good to go, I've been stuck a little bit. I got stuck a couple places, but nothing crazy.
a little stuck, a little stitious. It's
Yeah,
kind of
A little stuck, a little stitious, and honestly, the one time I did get stuck, I had an amazing time, so I didn't really care. It was great. I was glad I got stuck. If I had an IFR ticket, I would have missed out on 2 days in Shreveport, and I actually had a blast.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're not going to go down that road. But
Yeah.
I'm working on it.
Well, Alyssa's got another one here. By the way, Alyssa was talking earlier about always wearing a hat and usually a polo shirt when she flies. Yeah, Alyssa's always in a hat. It's usually a magenta hat. But this one is maybe kind of a superstition. Whenever I'm flying somewhere with a commercial FBO, I always make a reservation, even though it gains me nothing. I guess I don't fly to commercial FBOs very much, but yeah, I've never done that.
Yeah, I know what you mean, though. It doesn't seem to matter, but it's going to be one of those times where it finally does, and you're going to be so glad you did. It gives them, to me, like an opportunity to say, we actually have an event here that we've, or I don't know, something atypical, or
the one time you don't do it is when it's going to come back to bite you.
Right. So flying to Vegas with the F1 races. Yeah.
Right. I also like this one. It's not GA related from Plane Places and Adventures. The distance to your next gate is inversely related to the layover time.
That's true.
That is absolutely true.
So Ben, now you have a Hula girl on the top of your panel there.
I do.
Is that I mean, wouldn't you feel strange if all of a sudden that was not there?
I've taken her down a couple of times. So that was actually a gift from a coworker who had come back from Hawaii, and he said, "I think this would look really good on the top of your dash." But I do, if the last landing was not to my specifications, I turn her around. So if she's facing me and it's a bad landing, then I turn it around so she's looking out. So she's not staring me down while I'm trying to put the plane down.
See,
And
this is
then
good.
if that one's bad, then I
Yeah.
justify it by saying, well, she's not, watching what I'm doing to make sure I do it right.
Well,
So
how bad of a landing was it if she's still on the dash?
exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
well, actually, she will. If it's a bouncer, she'll kind of turn from one way to the side. She'll rotate around a little bit.
Yeah.
So there's some movement there. But yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up. But yeah,
Sure, yeah.
So I had a superstition, a preference when I was getting close to my check ride, which was I didn't want to announce the date of my check ride. And
Oh yeah.
so my partner knew, obviously. My parents didn't know the exact date, and I didn't tell this crowd or people like that, the exact date. Just give myself a little bit of kind of emotional buffer room, but behind it. So that to me was kind of a, I don't know, personal preference, I guess.
That might be a kind of a pro tip, a way to take pressure off. I don't know.
Yeah.
yeah,
I that is one of those things I think that it's like, if you announce it loudly, it's kind of the inverse of not sumping your fuel, where you brought it on yourself, and announcing it loudly, you kind of brought it on yourself.
And then if you blow the check ride, somebody asks you, "Hey, when's your check ride?" I'm just working it out, just trying to get it on the schedule.
It's in a month and a half. Yeah.
so
It's gonna be
almost
short.
30 years in sales, we've always said, never speak it to the universe.
Yeah.
Never speak it to the universe. But I will say, recently, I've been speaking it to the universe, and it's brought good luck. So I think you do kind of have to put it out there to will it to happen. So
There's a
I don't
fine
know.
line between calling attention to things and then having it go badly, or manifesting good things.
Yeah.
So have any of you thought about adopting Shepherd's Prayer? The
I'm not familiar with it.
Lord, don't let me F this up before takeoff. It's a famous Alan Shepard prayer. I wish I could get in the habit of doing that, because it just seems like the perfect thing to say to yourself. I've just never been able to get in the habit of it.
It's funny that you mentioned that. I do actually have on my modified checklist, there's a very short Hebrew prayer I usually just say it internally, but usually as I'm leaving the whole short line, lining up on the runway, I will say it. And if the boys in the plane with me, we'll say it out loud. But
That's cool.
it's a 5-second prayer. Yeah, it's very, very short. But
Yeah,
so
that's a great thing.
and it's
to add on
kind of
your
saying the
checklist.
same thing. Please don't let me screw this up.
Yeah.
But maybe in a more theological way.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been watching The Good Place lately, so I just think of Fork all the time now. So I don't know, very specific to that show. Do you want to read this from Meg on here?
Sure. Mike Alpha Golf says, wait, maybe I do have a superstition. When flying by myself, I bring a little stuffed animal with a tiny pair of pilot's wings on him as a co-pilot. And he knows nothing about physics. So there you go. You just proven it. If it defies physics, then it's got to be a superstition.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we went, I took a friend to the Ave Maria Grotto in Coleman, and she had picked up, I didn't realize it, but at the little gift shop there or something, she had grabbed this little trinket angel thing, and it is irretrievably down in the passenger side ashtray, and there forever now.
With all the loose pennies. Yeah.
It is just there. So, yeah. I mean, I think that you got to have, I don't know, rational or irrational. I think you got to have things, routines, or ways that you find comfort or whatever. And I think that when you're doing something is, I don't know, I guess it is a little bit more risky than usual things that you would do in life. You might as well stack it up with a little bit of superstition,
Well,
why not?
everything about aviation is about setting up routines and being in habits and following checklists. And traditions are basically the same thing, right? We have a tradition of checking our fuel before we take off. That's not too much different than patting the nose wheel and saying good job after a flight.
Yeah,
It's all checklist items. Some of them do good, some of them don't.
totally.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to wrap it up, it's basically, it's a stressful thing, and it's nice to. I think of superstitions as a warm, fuzzy blanket. You know what I mean? We just wrap
Yeah.
ourselves in it. It just makes us feel better, whether there's any logic to it or not. So,
Yeah.
if you have superstitions and you're in the audio only and just listening to this, send us an email. Tell us some good superstitions.
Yeah.
Don't forget we have the merch stores still open, and let us know what you think. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. Would love to read those online as well. So we appreciate the lively chat this evening. Glad everybody was able to join us.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, do we have anything else for the good of the order?
Yeah, before we roll out, I'll put 4 links in the show notes. Aviation News Talk 352 talked to a helicopter pilot involved in Hurricane Helene relief. Opposing Bases 353 talked about the response called Hurricane Response All Hands on Deck. Unrelated to that, Master CFI Nathan Ballard hosted NAFI Mentor Live last week. I'll put a note
Yeah.
for that. That was good. And finally, Jason Miller of the Finer Points podcast had an episode called When It All Goes Down about a pilot at a recent fly-in that they did that lost their engine and landed off in the wilderness. Talked about being rescued with their Garmin InReach and lessons learned, wearing good shoes when you might have to have an off-airport landing, things like
Yeah.
that. So,
Yeah.
great things to listen to.
Yes,
Wow.
Brian, you need new shoes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, I've just thought about keeping some boots in the plane.
That's
There you go.
what the guy had, and they were in the luggage compartment, so he's able to get to them later. But yeah.
Very good. Well, gentlemen, thanks for joining me tonight. Thanks to everybody in the chat. If you're listening, join us next week, Monday, 8 p.m. Eastern, youtube.com/@midlifepilotpodcast. And you can watch us live and make fools of ourselves, or more accurately, Ted and Brian make a fool of me, which is fine.
We do what we can.
We do what we can. So for signing off, episode 97 of the Midlife Pilot Podcast. Good night, everybody.